Hello and welcome. You never know where the next inspiration for a story is going to come from. I was browsing the shelves at Hesperian Press, a small publisher in Perth, when I came across the EP9 story. This book was written by Mike Cessna, a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer. When I flicked through the pages, I found reference to the Phantom Flyer. A lot of old Western Australian pilots have heard rumours about this fellow. Mike Cessna named the Phantom Flyer as Keith Wilkin. Many in pubs around the northwest knew about Wilkin's antics too. A pilot's licence in the north is a valuable thing. Distances are huge, and in the wet, travel by road almost impossible. So, if you have a licence, you don't jeopardise it. Keith Wilkin initially learnt to fly at the Royal Aero Club in Perth, but this was terminated when he was found to have diabetes, which, at the time, disqualified someone from holding a pilot's licence. Keith Wilkin was manager of Hammersley Cattle Station, a rough settlement in the Pilbara, then owned by the famed Lang Hancock. Allegedly, it was Lang who completed Keith's flying training so he could get licensed. Lang never held an instructor's rating. Keith's role as manager of that station would involve flying duties, and fortuitously, he owned a Cessna, a 172A. Wilkin's wife had just had their baby at Roebourne Hospital, and Wilkins had celebrated too well there before taking to the air on the 25th of October 1967. With two passengers on board, he buzzed a white utility on a nearby road, striking the rear window of that utility and breaking it, dislodging the nose wheel of the Cessna, though it was still attached to the plane. The driver and his two school-aged daughters were showered in glass and shaken. The driver continued to Pyramid Station, where he contacted the Department of Civil Aviation. Wilson was unlicensed due to his medical condition. As the owner of the aircraft and being unlicensed to fly it, he was prosecuted by the DCA in the Roebourne court on 14 charges, fined $1,320 and warned that jail awaited should there be any further illegal flying. Mike Cessna had taken on Hammersley Station as a customer, as they had a helicopter in need of repairs and he was the only freelance licensed helicopter engineer in the area. It was to Cessna that Wilkin turned to have his damaged Cessna repaired. Cessna said that this could only be done in Geraldton, where he was based. The Cessna arrived with coach bolts holding the front wheel in place. Sometime later, that Cessna's major inspection became due. The station would need another aircraft in the meantime. Hammersley Station pilot Steve Pearson flew the Cessna 172 to Geraldton, and Cessna agreed to loan his EP9 to him, getting John Walmsley to type convert him. Cessna had bought the EP9, namely Delta Alpha X-Ray, from Doggett Aviation in January 1968 for £2,000 to use for agricultural work. It was a busy aircraft. Pearson then flew the loaned EP9 back to Hammersley. Cessna had agreed to allow Pearson to type convert Keith Wilkin on the EP9 in case Pearson was away when a medical emergency occurred. Wilkin gave Cessna his solemn promise he would not fly the EP9 unless it was an emergency flight. That promise lasted less than a day, as Cessna received a phone call on April 7, 1968 to say that Wilkin had crashed his EP9. Wilkin had flown the EP9 with a female passenger over nearby Juna Station, 25 miles east of Whitnum. While circling low over stockmen who were mustering cattle in the scrub below, he struck the ground heavily and the aircraft crashed. The plane was wrecked. The girl was unharmed, but Wilkin suffered a cut to the head as his safety harness was not fully put on. He didn't seek treatment as he didn't want to draw attention to himself. Mike Sasson was told that if the authorities found out, Wilkin would go to jail for 2 years. You can imagine that Lang Hancock would be less than pleased to lose his manager. Sasson flew there and examined the wreck. The wreck had been covered in branches to hide it from prying eyes. Sasson's consent to bury the wreck was obtained under duress to prevent discovery by DCA. Wilkin even suggested that Steve Pearson take the blame for the crash. Sasson was appalled. Then he was asked to take the blame. It was clear that Wilkin's version of events was a lie in that the accident had occurred elsewhere. The plane moved and posed to make it seem that the plane had come to grief on landing at a bush strip. A bulldozer was brought in to dig a hole and the wreck pushed in it to bury it. Everyone swore to silence. Wilkin couldn't help himself, boasting in a pub later to his mates as to how he had filled the department. Then a geologist working in the area found an aircraft strut and he took it to the DCA for identification. DCA Inspector Bill Scott paid Sasson a visit. Sasson was the owner of the only EP9 in West Australia. He asked, "Where is your aircraft?" "Regulations demand that you inform DCA of any crash or damage." Sasson confessed to his part in the cover-up, pun intended. He wasn't charged due to his complete cooperation. Wilkin appeared in Perth Police Court in August 1968 and was fined $300, but not jailed. The sentence was mitigated as he stated that he had compensated Sasson for the loss of his EP9. He never did. Wilkin had accumulated over 2,000 hours of illegal flying around the northwest, always staying ahead of the DCA inspectors, thus earning the title of the Phantom Flyer. Worse was to come out. DCA knew that Wilkin had flown near the vicinity of an earlier aircraft crash, but he wouldn't assist in a rescue for fear of being identified for flying there illegally. Those 2 people in the crash died. On the 25th of June 1981, Don Gordon was in Pannawonica and needed to fill up his car. He went into the service station, and who was running it but Keith Wilkin. Wilkin told him that he owned a Cessna 152 and had put a Cessna 172 engine in it and said, "Go take it for a fly." Don said it was a quick flight, 108 knots on downwind. Yes, Pannawonica is a long way from the eyes of authorities, so why did Wilkin own a Cessna which he couldn't legally fly? Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe and hit the notify bell to encourage more content.